Hi there, I'm Dani Henderson. Welcome to my beautiful channel. My guest today is an award-winning author, publisher, and a very well-known global research archaeologist. He is the man who goes to every continent, every cave, every hidden mystery, every city, every sculpture. And his name is Brad Olsen. Welcome, Brad.
Hey, Dani, thanks for having me on and such a wonderful introduction. You're so kind. Yes, I've been to all 7 continents and I love to go to archaeological sites and find out the mysteries. And I'll tell you, there's always 2 sides to it. And the side that's really interesting and juicy that I love to talk about at my presentations is not the side that the standard archaeologists will tell you. And that's my secret for GISIC, is that I will be revealing some evidence and information that we have indeed antediluvian past civilization on this planet.
That is so exciting. Now, you mentioned GISIC, and for those that don't know, GISIC is our conference. Brad Olsen will be a speaker for the 2nd year running. It is the Galactic and Spiritual Informers Connection. It is a host of world-class speakers who literally are bringing disclosure of every system upstairs and downstairs on your planet. Because we're so censored, I'm currently, as I record this with Brad, banned off YouTube yet again for speaking truth. So at our conference, this is why we have to have these conferences, in order to keep the truth of our planet going. And Brad Olsen has a secret, as yet undisclosed in any other venue he's spoken at this year. Come to the GISIC 2023 and hear Brad. Now, Brad, please tell us, what got you into being a research archaeologist in the first place?
Well, I have a fondness for travel. Been doing it since I was a little kid, and Boy Scouts kind of got my whistle wet, so to speak. Did a bunch of trips with my family growing up, and always just knew there was a bigger world out there. So as soon as I graduated college, I self-financed my first trip to Europe, 3 months backpacking around and just seeing all the places that I'd studied in history and art history books in my classes, and just felt so overwhelmed with what I learned by traveling that I got a tip to live in Japan and teach English, which I did for 14 months. And then I self-financed my next trip around the world I was away for 3 years. It's quite amazing. And my very first book is still in print. It's called World Stompers, a global travel manifesto. And it's all about how to travel the world and pitfalls and making money along the way, and just basically doing independent travel, which I'm a big advocate of. And that led to my Sacred Places series of books, and that led to my Esoteric series of books. And here I am today, 35 years later, after setting off on my first solo trip to Europe.
Thank you, Brad. It's so lovely to get the full history and the background of where you came from, because you didn't just suddenly pop up out of nowhere, talking of ancient sites and giving presentations on stages around the country and around the world. You actually have a long timeline of knowledge and study behind you. Tell us a couple of things about Japan, the city that you were staying in, because I know you and I have had that conversation, but share with the audience a little bit about Japan and what you find particularly intriguing about their hidden culture and history.
Yes, and I'll be bringing this up in my presentation. Megalithic monuments in Japan. I remember seeing them when I visited Tokyo, the Imperial Palace, and Osaka, where I was teaching English for a couple months with the school I was with, and going to see some of these ancient sites that have verifiably megalithic architecture, polygonal architecture in the structures that have been there for a very long time. The shogun castles, which are often above some of these megalithic foundations, have come and gone. Some of them were destroyed in World War II, and they rebuilt the Osaka castle, for example. But these megalithic foundations that create kind of a star fort pattern are very old. And this, again, gives us a hint that this antediluvian civilization was once global around the world. And I'll be presenting on so many of these locations around the world, including what's underwater too. Now, how do you build a megalithic city underwater unless it was done at the last ice age 12,000 years ago? And of course, Yonaguni, which is the southernmost of the Okinawa island chain, has a very famous underwater ruin, which I'll also be showing in my presentation at GISIC.
Beautiful. I love that. It's amazing to me how many star forts are being discovered around the world. And I didn't know that was going to be in your presentation. I'm so glad that we're having that conversation just briefly. It makes me so happy because, again, I love the segueing into coincidences or not. Synchronicities actually is a better phrase to use with regard to the star forts and you putting it into your presentation. But I'm so excited about all the revelations coming up, all the people coming out and sharing their different truths in different systems, not just archaeological wise or galactic wise, but medicine wise and health wise and science wise and everything that's been taken from us. It's like we've ridden roughshod over all of the controllers and they're now in the rearview mirror along with everybody else that doesn't believe there's anything like the galactic history or the ancient research that you've been doing as truth. It's just so beautiful to me that this is happening. There's this cacophony of people collapsing in together in the arms of love and moving forward. It makes me so excited. So star forts is one thing, but I want to talk a little bit about something you raised the attention of for many, many of us, hundreds of thousands of us a little while ago. It was when someone took a drone down in the interior of Colorado and the Egyptian revelation there. Can you share a bit about that with us?
Well, it was the Colorado River, but it's actually in the Grand Canyon in Arizona. And as another great GISIC speaker, Michael Sala, who will be there, was talking with one of his whistleblowers, JP, who said that he was able to get into the cave system of the Grand Canyon, which led to these relics, which were written about in the Arizona Gazette in the year 1909. The second exploration of the Grand Canyon netted the great result by an explorer named Kincaid. And it was written about in this very famous article describing what he found. And then JP went down in there and reported the same thing. So I love it when we get these matching data points. And because I spent 21 days in the Grand Canyon in 2003, sailing the extent or rafting the extent of it from Lake Powell to Lake Mead, and looking for these sites, Dani, I was very much aware of the Kincaid expedition and where to look out for some of these locations, which I did an interview with Dr. Sala and spoke about how they were mining gold in the Grand Canyon before it became a national park, including some of the headline articles saying that they had found gold. Well, gee, wouldn't you know, the Egyptians were absolutely fascinated with gold too. And some of the artifacts were described as Egyptian and Far Eastern. And JP also verified that too. So I just went on with Dr. Michael Sala to add further corroboration to what JP said he discovered down there as well.
It's so exciting. I know with JP, who is an active duty military person, has known Dr. Michael Sala, who you said will be a speaker again at GISIC. He's the leader in exopolitics on our planet. The most trusted, the military trusts Dr. Michael Sala, the good military, Space Force, yeah. Earth Command, Earth Alliance. And so he and his friend, beautiful JP shared that he'd gone on a mission. He had to take a truck from the military place to a plane, then truck overland, and then take a boat up the river to enter into this ancient storeroom, for want of a better phrase. It's a bit insulting to call it a storeroom, but the fact is they have many ancient tablets, hieroglyphs, pictographs, giant statues in it that have been hidden and stashed away. And we come to know, because it's absolutely true, that the governments of our planet, let's take the American government, are fully aware of that area in Arizona. Not only so, because they have named mountains, underground tunnels, caves, and major points in that area, all after Egyptian pharaohs, Egyptian technology, and temples and Egyptian temples. And so that, I mean, what a bunch of dimwits. I think they honestly believed it would be covered up forever, right? And that the idiots that they think we are, the useless eaters as they dare to call us, would be so like not going to explore, not discover, that to all their mates, they'd be like, yeah, it's by the temple of Isis. That's where we're stashing our diamonds, you know, and then pop across to Sekhmet, you know, Sekhmet's temple here, and that's where we stash all our gold, and, you know, but they again, largely, what I've come to understand is the retardos at the top that put themselves there, they're so stupid. They underestimated how brilliant we humans are. They never had the capacity to love, feel, and have passion. So they totally didn't get that wiring in their non-human beingnesses. But we are so full of love and so full of passion. And it's exciting to discover the true history of our planet. And you, Brad, have done an enormous amount of work, a huge body of work. You truly have. I can't believe that you're not like the #1, you know, research archaeologist in the world. Or maybe you're due to be, who knows? Because the body of work, truly, Brad, I'm not just bigging you up here, not just trying to big up the fact that you're also a speaker at the greatest disclosure conference ever in October, but Brad, you truly have delivered and given us information that many of us would never have had access to. Let's just talk about for a minute your trilogy, your esoteric trilogy. Can you give us some information on what we can expect to find in there, please?
Well, absolutely. My 3 books in the Esoteric series are very well received. Each one of the 3 is in multiple printings. And now all 3 are going to be republished in Bulgarian. And I just got Modern Esoteric as a hardcover. Look at this. It's like 750 pages thick, but the publisher was true to our layout and format. All the images and all the chapter heads and design was put right into it, although in a acrylic language that I can't understand, but it's quite flattering to see it in a hardcover copy in reaching a new audience. So that's good to know that foreign publishers find the merit in these books, because what I'm interested in doing, Dani, is just collecting all the information that has been withheld from humanity. And believe me, it takes 3 books of my own that are 450 pages each, never repeating my information, of putting it in there. And a lot of it is our ancient history. So much of it has been written out of the history books, and we have just been kept away from knowing our true origins and who we are on this planet. As Graham Hancock says, and we were both on a panel at Contact in the Desert, him sitting right next to me, I had to answer the question right after Graham Hancock, but he would say, we are a species with amnesia. And he's right. We just don't know who we are. So by going to all these places around the world and by putting together these books, I'm able to give a pretty comprehensive look into all the evidence of who we are, including the ancient technology that went into building some of these megalithic sites. And some of them, Dani, like the blocks used in Baalbek, Lebanon, are so huge that there is not a crane in the world that can lift them from the quarry and put them into the building site, so perfectly fitted on top of other megalithic blocks. So we're clearly dealing with a form of technology that is still as yet known on this planet. That's why I can say quite confidently it is an antediluvian civilization. That is a high-tech civilization that had lived on this earth, that built these monuments around the world, which I'll show in my presentation at GISIC. And I'll let the viewers come to their conclusion after the talk about how much evidence there is for this ancient civilization.
I love it. Wonderful, wonderful. Now, it's a 3-day event, GISIC. It's a 3-day event. We invite people to come on the Thursday, of course, to get registered and check into their hotel rooms, and with Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And over those days, the audience will be able to meet you personally, sit with you, talk to you, get books signed if that's what they wish to do. And it's just so wonderful. You're so approachable, Brad. You really are. And, you know, of course, we can't miss you. I mean, you are 6'7", you know, a lovely, long, blonde drink of water. I remember remember the very first time I saw you at a conference, and you walked in, and it was like there was this silence. All the women fainted. The men were like, "Who is that?" You know, when you walked in with these sunglasses on and you just took the heads off everybody. But you have this really beautiful, humble, sweet presence, which is another reason why you are a main speaker at our GISIC event, because everybody that stands alongside you, Elena Danan, Dr. Michael Sala, Tony Rodriguez, Jean-Charles Moyen, Karina Pataki, gosh, who else is there? Dr. Christian.
Alex Collier.
Huh? Well, Alex will be
Alex
there
Collier.
and announcing, yeah. Yeah, I don't want to like say that he's not speaking on stage, but he will be introducing on stage. He will be there as a vendor as well with the most incredible off-planet technology. But that's everyone. Not only are we all friends, like truly really adore each other and support each other off camera, but the signature key, the frequency I look for in someone who I'm going to say this is the best disclosure conference and these are the best people, is you all have the same element of humbleness, not stupidity, not weakness, humbleness, respectfulness of what you know to be true. Nothing holds you back, and you don't fight for the light to be you. It comes to you. It comes to you. Is delivered to you. And you are so well loved. You are so well loved. And I just adore you and love you too. And I'm so proud that we're talking right now. It's been so long, months, and you've been creating your beautiful ranch and you've been publishing more books for others now. Talk a bit about that, what you've been doing as a new publisher or a long-term publisher.
And I lost my Facebook account for about 2 months from a hacker, but got them back. And so that was a little quiet online. But it's fine because I have so many projects that I'm immersed in. And I just bought this 10-acre ranch last summer out in northwestern Nevada, which I truly adore. And so there's work to do with that. I put a well in February, and I poured the cement in May for a pump room. And after I come back from Florida again this month, flying down to Fort Lauderdale to film an 8-episode series with Billy Carson on forbidden knowledge, called Mysterious Antarctica, that I will then have the funding to put in my pump room. So flowing water right out of the aquifer. We hit paid dirt when we went down 200 feet. I got the aquifer, 120 gallons a minute. So I'll have the possibility of growing food. I want to be a self-sustained community, eventually put in a whole tiny house village and do conferences right here in my big warehouse that came with the property when I bought it, where I'm reporting from you live. And so all the while I have publishing projects with Michael Jaco's second book is called Awakening of a Warrior. That'll be out in October. And working with Laura Eisenhower on her first of 3 books, which will come out next spring. And then I've got my own book project. So I'm going to do a second edition to Beyond Esoteric with a pandemic chapter. It's now quite appropriate to put in there. And also I'm working on my 11th book, Dani. You're among the first shows that I've announced, Esoteric Antarctica. So everything weird and wonderful about that frozen continent, which was my presentation last year on GISIC, that everybody loves to hear, all the wild and weird stuff going on down there.
Yeah, that is amazing. I love that. And yeah, last year we had Laura Eisenhower as a main speaker too. And I said to you earlier, I think we did a beautiful job in hosting her and her standing on that great stage and addressing those beautiful people and exonerating her great-grandfather. I felt really good. And Laura always does such a great job. She's just a beautiful speaker, very, very, very highly intelligent woman, definitely. You mentioned Vostok, Lake Vostok, or maybe you didn't because that's my next question, being in Antarctica. Last year on stage, when you did your presentation on Hidden Antarctica, you mentioned Lake Vostok. And what was amazing last year, again, there were so many revelations coming out in our group, in our team of speakers that we didn't even realize, we didn't even know. So we had elements where Elena Danan and Jean-Charles Moyen, the great French film director who just got his new movies coming out, he's going to South Shore 2, I think it's called, South Shore 2, just coming out, all about his true real life experiences, because Hollywood is way too frightened of Jean-Charles Moyen, because he has the real stories, he has the real proof of himself as a military soldier, stolen as a child, put into military programs, and then later as a young adult consented to go into the French military, but then the things that happened before, after, and during. So him and Elena Danan found themselves in a ship under Lake Vostok. And then when you were on stage last year and you mentioned it, I'm like, oh my God, this trilogy, this triage of information,
Yeah.
confirmation, right?
Yeah, I love it when data points all connect, and their testimony was absolutely fascinating and went right along the lines of what I understand and know about it. Look, Lake Vostok is one of the most recently found Great Lakes in the world. It's in the top 10 list of the largest freshwater lakes in the world that nobody even knows about. Well, it wasn't even known until about 2 decades ago when the Russians discovered it looking at satellite images and seeing a big indentation on the polar plateau. They were able to drill down into it over 2 miles through the ice to take a water sample, and in 2016 determined that there was a form of bacteria in the water of Lake Vostok that came off of a fish as yet undiscovered. So there is life that lives under the ice in this lake that never freezes. It must be warmed through the geothermal features of Antarctica. Antarctica has more active volcanoes than any other continent of the world. So it's truly the land of fire and ice. And when you have a lake down there that's quite deep as well, with the propensity of all kinds of species that may find a way to exist, especially near the geothermal vents, which they've discovered in the bottom of the ocean, all forms of new life flock around these heat sources, that you could have the propensity for other worldly like scenes down there. And then so when Jean-Charles and Elena spoke about going to a base down there, I had no doubt in my mind that such would exist, not just there, but in other locations of Antarctica, because with the geothermal heating, you have the propensity for these very large under ice domes. And that's also why it's been a location that's said to harbor extraterrestrial, our own different secret governments of earthlings here on Earth. Because look, if you wanted to hide from the prying eyes of satellites or other beings seeing what you're up to, boy, there's no better place on planet Earth to hide than under the ice in Antarctica. So it's quite fascinating that they were able to go down there and report on what it looks like, because it must be an otherworldly type of environment to see.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to talk to them both more about that when I see them in October, because boy, do I have questions. Always have questions.
I know. No, it's ever so exciting. And Antarctica is being, and has been in some regards, fully revealed. I mean, we know from the time of Operation High Jump, William Byrd coming, Admiral Byrd coming, and, you know, three-pronged land, sea, and air, because the Nazis were there in that ancient underground dome, and they got way too much power, and they came up in an anti-gravity machine and they lasered 2 of the warships there. This is true. This is something that when the papers, after 50 years, the top secret papers, as we know, have to be released. Of course, there's always redactions. I don't trust any of them, never will, never have. Talk to my ass. But anyway, at least we got somewhere with that, right? That intel. And so we know that it's like Jean-Charles Moyen, when he released his first movie, South Shore, he recognized, because you can map who's buying your videos, there was somebody in Antarctica that bought it, you know, because Antarctica is so busy. There's so many military there. There's so many stations and substations there. There's every country in the world pretty much we know are down there. Like, this is actually old news to a lot of people. But John Charles was like, look at this, there's somebody in Antarctica and they've watched my movie like 257 times, because you can tell when you sell it on Vimeo. And then he says, like, who's watching this? The penguins, you know, because he's French. Like, penguins are watching my movie. It's like, guys, it's like nothing is hidden anymore. Like we don't allow it. We, the people of this planet, the good people, the good humans, we demand it. We demand our planet back on our terms. And all this bullshit, the different stages of global warming. The planet is cyclical. We never seem to talk about that. We never seem to say, we're always insulting Mother Gaia, or Planet Ki, as I like to call her, from the Anunnaki. But she is able to rebalance the ridiculous things that come at her. I mean, she's so much bigger and more intelligent than we ever give her, but then you've got these little Muppets in grey suits around the world, these ding-dongs, ding-dong, telling us, oh, it's global warming. Yeah, is that because of all the HAARP equipment you're using? HAARP, right? The government
and the
military,
chemtrails.
right? And the thousands and thousands and thousands of windmills you've got in the oceans that literally between the Gulf Streams are redirecting weather. Muppets, you think we don't know? Golly. Anyway, now let's get too deep down that rabbit hole, because we don't want to upset and have them all crying and there be more censorship. But anyway, yeah, Lake Vostok, definitely. Antarctica is very much a point of interest here. Tell us one of your other favorite 1 or 2 places in the world that you've discovered and why.
Sure. I'm always attracted to the tourist destinations, as many of them have become, that have megalithic buildings. I'm quite fascinated with not just seeing these incredible monuments, but how they were built and where the quarries were, and how could they possibly have moved such massive stones over such great distances and down steep mountainsides and across rivers and up other steep mountainsides, such as Ollantaytambo in Peru. So the Sacred Valley in Peru, which extends from Ollantaytambo, where you catch the train to go to Agua Calientes, to go to Machu Picchu, for example, all the way up to Cusco, the ancient capital of the pre-Incan people. See, this is where history takes a diversion, such as that all the archaeologists say, oh, all the megaliths were built by the Incans. Well, the Incans themselves says, no, we didn't do it. We just built upon what was there. And why wouldn't they? Because the older the megaliths are, such as in the Sacred Valley, which has the highest concentration of megaliths than anywhere else in the world. And of course, I'll be showing this in my presentation at GISIC too. Some of these blocks at Sacsayhuaman above Cusco, weighing 50, 70 tons, perfectly fitted together in this jigsaw-like structure in the central plaza at Sacsayhuaman. So seeing some of these places, Dani, just utterly blew me away and made me realize I have to tell the world that this is not the story of these ancient peoples, who I do believe built these structures with the sole purpose of not only using them for whatever function they had, but also to say, hey, we had it going on back now, and you guys are playing catch up, trying to rebuild what we show you we could already build. And again, like Bell back in Lebanon, trying to reproduce some of these monuments. The Japanese tried to rebuild the Great Pyramid, and they failed miserably. They couldn't do it. And they were doing a scaled down model of the Great Pyramid. So these monuments tell an incredible story, and it's the true history of high-tech civilizations that had lived on this earth that have just been written out of the history books because it's too much trouble to try to explain other cultures having the ability to build in megalithic stones like this, which of course are not done at all anymore. In fact, down in Florida, where we're going to be gathering in October, if anybody is coming down, they have a couple extra days, go down to see the Coral Castle just outside of Miami in Homestead, Florida, built single-handedly by a tiny little Latvian guy, 100-pound weakling, as Charles Atlas would call him. You better start working out because the bullies are going to kick sand on you. Remember in the comic books, we'd see that story. That was this guy, Ed Scalian. He built a megalithic complex in South Florida single-handedly. The only clue he gave was to say he knew the secrets of how they built the Great Pyramids. and he single-handedly placed 30-ton coral blocks of stone to create this coral castle. And by the way, it's the only modern megalithic building in the last 100 years that's been built single-handedly by one guy who knew the secrets of how they built the Great Pyramids. So taken together, we start to get an idea that there is this ancient wisdom of building techniques, even how they could live together in harmony, such as the ancient continent of Mu, which is a very peaceful place. Atlantis came along and they introduced high-tech weapons. There's actually evidence of vitrification, that is melted stones, as well as pockmarks of sand that turned to glass in the Sahara, in Mohenjo-daro, the archaeological site in Pakistan, where people were joined hand in hand and had been buried by this catastrophe. Somebody had the idea of bringing out a Geiger counter and they were still full of radiation. So there had been high-tech wars that took place on this planet too. And all we have to do is look at the archaeological record and piece together this very fascinating story of our ancient history.
Yeah, it's just so beyond exciting. I love when you talk about Machu Picchu and Cusco and Sacsayhuaman. I've been to those places and studied and took the train, you know, and it was just all such a beautiful experience. It was so enriching. And one of the great things when I was at Sacsayhuaman, I was noticing it was a certain time of day, the way the sun was coming over. And when I was walking past in particular, that those monolithic stones that are so dovetailed together so beautifully, like a jigsaw, I took photographs of my shadow. My shadow was so different. I have those pictures. My shadow seemed to, you could see my legs. They were like the longest columns you've ever seen. It was just amazing to me, the way the light bends there. Also incredible. And then Cusco, oh my gosh, Cusco, the energy in Cusco as well was just wow. And then Machu Picchu, oh my gosh, climbing all the way up, being there. I took a private tour. I hired a brilliant, you know, in Peru, the people are so educated at the highest level. Like even the people serving us on the train they all were so educated. They were so proud of their jobs. They were so gentle. They were well dressed. It was a beautiful experience. It was a bit like I guess the Peruvian example of the Orient Express, with the beautiful ancient train with the wood and the tablecloths were laid and the beautiful Peruvian handcrafted mats, and it was just joyous to be there. And that energy, you know, and me as a clairvoyant, I'm seeing all different layers and dimensions. And I was with I pointed out one thing. I said to the woman, I said, oh my God, I couldn't catch my breath. It was a moment, a shock moment in my physiology. And I said to her, I have to get to that. What is that? And it was the Sun Temple. And when we went to the Sun Temple, there's a massive sacrificial stone there. Anyway, more about that another time, but it was great. And I just so encourage people to travel around the world. Travel. Stop putting it off. Stop waiting for the kids to leave home. Stop waiting. Keep going. It's time. I also want to say one more thing, Rob. I want to say that in terms of you with your beautiful ranch and being self-sufficient, I want to encourage everybody on the planet right now. If you have a lawn, if you have a garden and you have a lawn, pull it up. Plant your food. Be careful where you get your seeds though, because that bloke, Master Bates, he's been going around the world buying all the organic seeds. You know that bloke that started that computer company, that dodgy bloke, looks like a bit of a reptilian. Yeah, what were you doing?
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, he's been doing a lot of damage, including hoarding seeds. And yes, so source them wisely, because seeds, of course, can also be GMO, and you want to avoid that like the plague.
And the thing is, people have got to stop being bloody lazy and looking at people like you and I to do the job for them, and research deep, get into it, like get off your ass and start reading. What can I do to support myself and my family? Pull up your lawn, plant your food so you don't go without, okay? It's really that simple. It's a brilliant idea. I got it off Dr. Christiane Northrup on our last conversation that was taken off YouTube because the deep state is scared of her and Kathy O'Brien. All we were doing was talking about the sound of freedom. Hundreds and hundreds of people are talking about the sound of freedom, but I got taken down. And it's from a friend of hers who is promoting this. Pull up your lawn. Pull up your lawn. What do you think about that? As a man who's bought a 10-acre ranch in Nevada and has all this land, what do you think?
Well, I don't think it's going to be much of a matter of, do I want to pull up my lawn and grow my own food, but more of a necessity. You're going to have to pull up your lawn and start growing your own food, because we know that they're poisoning us in every possible way they can, in the air with the chemtrails, in the land with GMO crops and glyphosate and all the chemicals that got put into it, fluoride in our water. You're going to want a pure source of food. And what better way of knowing your food source than to grow it yourself? Yes, it's a lot of work, but when it comes time to feeding yourself and your family and your friends around you, I think we're going to be coming back into a period of barter again, that this whole money system, we're watching it slowly collapse, but there'll come a time when it'll quickly collapse. And they're going to try to push this central bank digital currency. And I'm just saying we have to resist that, because if they get us all using their cryptocurrency, then we're screwed. There will be no turning back. They will have complete control over the human race. They can turn it on and off at will. If I have a conversation with Dani Henderson and they didn't like what I have to say, guess what? I can't go to the supermarket and buy my own food. So this is going to become a necessity that we're going to have to start living independently. Having your own clean water source, I think, is key as well as using what little land you need. And I'm starting my own little planter boxes. You don't need a whole lot of space. You really don't, to grow your own food. And this is going to be becoming more and more of a necessity as we see all the supply chain breakdowns and the coming crisis with currency and other things, which are a planned implosion. I have no doubt in my mind that they'll say, oh, well, we had nothing to do with it. But yeah, they did. Nothing you can believe on the mainstream is true anyways. In fact, whatever they say, just do the old inversion back on them and know that it's quite the opposite of what they're projecting is the real truth.
Yeah, I was in a store today, a store that's closing down, Bed Bath and Beyond, and there's this really cool lady behind the counter. And I was just buying like a little hand soap thing, and I went in there to see what it was all about as well. Anyway, this cool chick, she had red hair, dyed red hair. She had a little like kerchief over her head and a white t-shirt. And I walked up to her. I went, wow, I said, I love your outfit. You look really cool. Because I really thought she didn't. She went like that. I'm like, okay, she's not having a happy day. Anyway, so I said to her, I've got cash. She goes, oh, I went, well, you're good with cash. I said, the sign says you are. She goes, why is everyone paying me cash? I said, well, I'm paying me cash because I only pay me cash as much as I can. I said, because the turds that run my planet, they want us to not have cash. And she went, it's annoying like that. I'm like, oh, okay, have a lovely day. I love you, bye. But the fact is that if we do give up our cash, if we let those Muppets take our cash off us, then we're screwed. Let's say you and I have a conversation and we're all in that digital banking system, and they don't like what I said or what you said, and they cut me off, which they like to do. So I will have no money, no access, and I could potentially starve to death. If you, as my friend, try to help me, they'll cut you off too. They're going to ask you, where did you spend that $5, Brad? Where did it go? Show us. Show us the proof. Nobody gets it, I don't think. The danger that potentially the net that they're trying to, I mean, they are going to fail. So I don't want to put the fear of God out there, but I want people to know what they tried to do and what they're still trying to do to my planet, your planet, our planet. Right?
Well, yeah. And really the sad, hard truth we're all going to have to face is that we're dealing with an anti-human depopulation agenda. Of course, they're not going to give us pure water, pure food, pure air to breathe. We're being systematically poisoned. Mm-hmm. And that's another reason why I personally feel people need to know these esoteric subjects, these things that have been kept from all of us, because a lot of it has to do with your own personal health and your well-being, and the kind of off big pharma medicine ways like Christiana Northrup will tell us at GISIC, ways that we can help ourselves with natural remedies.
Yeah.
And so this is why these kind of conferences are so vitally important. And I implore all your listeners to come this October, because there's just something about being in the presence of people giving these presentations and learning it firsthand. I always think of it like binge watching on YouTube for hours and hours, just getting download after download, but you're there in front of the speakers, and then you can interact with them afterwards and pick up their books and have a talk with them. And that part of it to me is just such an invaluable treat. And that's why I love coming to and speaking at conferences. So thank you for having me on again this year. And I think I'm going to have a really great talk for everybody again this year too.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. And for me, it's like the audience that comes to GISIC, they are so sophisticated. They are so clever. They're so far along in their journeys, and something in them drives them to get there, because they know they're going to meet family. They're going to connect with friends, past life friends, new friends, soul family. And that's what happened. And it was like this experience that people had last year. And last year I didn't have any vendors, but barely any vendors. This year, the vendors hosting on and off planet technology. We're going to have Dan Williams standing on stage, former top secret naval officer, a man who used to do Morse code back in the day, a man who reported a 70-foot UFO in front of him, a man who's been working with Marcel Vogel, Crystal Energy, standing on stage with 2 other scientists and performing a frill generator. We're going to see the universal energy known as frill energy be demonstrated. It's never happened in the world. It's happening at GISIC. We've got Alex Collins, quantum wave technology, giving us information on this way beyond what we've ever seen in our lives. We've got Chris O'Connor and his medbed. Oh my flipping goodness, that people can actually try. There's so much technology. I interviewed someone yesterday. There's a Palladian blanket, wellness blanket. This technology came from the Russian cosmonaut, because for those that don't know, Russian astronauts are called Russian cosmonauts, and the other astronauts in America are called astronauts. Same role. But we are bringing these blankets, palladium, this palladium metal that protects the EMFs, that it does so much more as well. But I'll be interviewing them on my channel soon so we can find out more. But the technology that's going to be there at GISIC this year, the extra speakers that we have this year, the different disclosure elements that we're bringing, the audience, the fire pit experience, the food. I give everyone a free breakfast every day because I don't want people rushing and panicking. I come in, there's your breakfast right there. Come sit down, everyone chill. We have so much music, so much fun, getting up, shaking our asses a bit here and there. And oh, it's just so good. It's just so good. If you had to pick one major thing from last year's GISIC, what would it be? I know I'm putting you on the spot. What would it be?
Well, I was really moved with when Alex got the Lifetime Achievement Award. There was just so much love in the room, so much admiration by all of us. And I was fortunate enough to be on the stage and tell Alex how I truly felt and what a contribution he's made to ufology and helping all of us through the decades understand this very thorny concept of ET contact and the difference between benevolent and malevolent ETs. And for him to call me the real life Indiana Jones, it was such a great honor. He's such a great man and a good friend. And so that was my favorite moment at GSIC last year.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it was so emotional. I had the honor of presenting him with his Lifetime Achievement Award, and we were all crying. It was just, we were a mess. It was, and he was bawling. He was so moved. He didn't, that's another thing, again, the humble frequency I talk about. Alex has been a global leader in revelations, in disclosure of extraterrestrials. He's been screaming into the wind, as he put it, all his life. And he stood on that stage and received his award and said, we started out 30 odd years ago screaming into the wind, and now you, the audience, have the wind at your back. Yeah, there wasn't a dry eye. I'm actually playing with him on Monday of this week. I'm going to interview him on my channel again. I just love having him. It's just such a, I love having you too. I love having all of you speakers, GISIC speakers. It's just such a, oh my God, I just feel so happy, excited, and honored, you know. And despite all the negatives that come and the attacks and the blockings and the targeting, and none of that matters. That's just like a skid mark on the floor. We bleach it away and on we go. One quick thing on the kind of poisoning, because we can only go little bits here and there when we just, you know, when we disclose on channels like this. I want people to know that they can look this up for themselves. In the 1980s and the 1990s, there was experimentation done on most of the Hawaiian Islands, in remote Hawaiian Islands. The Hawaiian Islands literally are the furthest land masses away from anywhere else on this planet. Anyway, quick story. The planes they were dropping barium, titanium, and aluminum so much in certain areas that they genetically changed the molecular structure of the soil and are no longer able to grow real organic food. They can only grow GMO. So that practice has been done. It's been done. It's been perfected. All right. So again, people need to know that.
And you know that Monsanto has released seeds that are resistant to aluminum. Well, how is that possible that seeds would ever be in contact with particulate aluminum unless it was being sprayed from the skies? So they're well aware of the chemtrail agenda and are working to make farmers move over to their crops. And their crops are shite. You don't want to eat them. They're full of glyphosate, which causes all kind of autoimmune and allergic responses. And it can blow over into neighboring fields. There was a case where an Amish farmer, which of course they always grow organic, they never would ever dream of using a Monsanto product, blew over into their field, and they got sued by Monsanto for growing their seeds without a license. So that's how crazy these corporations have gotten. And they are the real bane of our existence. They have taken over in such a way, and I go into quite a bit of detail in the first section of my book, Beyond Esoteric, explaining the neo-fascist agenda that has taken over this country and basically enforcing its will. Because the old classic definition, which by the way, they have changed in dictionaries from World War II, which was in the classic definition of fascism, what Mussolini and Hitler did, and that was government taking control of corporations. Now it's the neo-fascist. It is the corporations who now control our governments. And of course, they own the media, so they like to think they control the narrative about how we think we exist on this planet, and they get everything wrong. It was the CIA director, William Colby, who at Ronald Reagan's initial meeting with the CIA, he was the director, William Colby, said, "We'll know our disinformation campaign is successful when everything the American people believe is false." And you think, who thinks like this? Who would do such a thing? Well, that's why we live on a prison planet. And that's why the subtitle of Beyond Esoteric is Escaping Prison Planet, to give people the information and knowledge they need to make the correct decisions, like not growing Monsanto seeds, like tearing up their lawn and starting their own organic farm, because it's not just going to be, a hobby that you like to do this. I think it's going to be a necessity that we're all going to need to be very aware of everything that goes into our body. And that includes all the big pharma products as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. And I want to, again, to people, you know, so like where I live currently, there's a bloody homeowners association. People need to get hold of these governing Nazi bodies here and like put them straight, you know, vote people off who are so miserable on homeowner associations and find people. If you've got caring, loving homeowners, just as an example, you tell them that you are going to take up part of your lawn, that you are going to plant your food, and they do not have the right to tell you otherwise. And if they push back on you, you get together and you calmly, peacefully let them know what time it is. When it comes to companies like Monsanto, again, we do not comply. When it comes to your corrupt governments, you stand up peacefully and you do not comply. There's something happening in Britain right now. Mark Atwood told me about it the other day. I actually posted his symbol on my fake book wall. And it is, I might have it here actually in my phone. It is basically the people are going against, standing up and telling the British government what time it is because somebody needs to, and basically saying that we do not comply as a, here it is. Okay, I withdraw my consent to be governed by any corrupt, compromised, belligerent criminal parliament or government. I will not comply. So that's what you're kind of looking out for, that kind of symbol. Yep. And this is us, the people, we, the people of the planet, coming together, taking care of each other, giving each other means and ways to live a healthy, happy life without being governed by a bunch of fetid shithead turds that had no business putting themselves in positions that I didn't put them in. I didn't vote that Schwab bloke to tell him to create his WEF. You know, who the hell is he? How rude and how dare you? And you are fired, fat boy. Sit down, you and your chubby mates. Go away. Heinous looking. You know what they say about really evil people too? When you look at somebody who's so physically unattractive, it's because the inside is on the outside. It truly is. The inside at this stage of those people is on the outside. Yeah. Anyway. Brad Olsen, you
Schwab
are
of the Hut.
Huh?
Schwab of the Hut, I call them. The mother weffers.
Yeah.
They're awful. They're trying to dominate us. And this is the new form of fascism I'm trying to warn people about. We have to see that it's coming from corporations and from boardrooms that you never see who are making these decisions. And they're certainly not elected. They have bought and paid for our elected officials who are literally puppets for their agendas. And so we have to be very careful about who we believe is an authority figure in this modern age.
The thing is too, Brad, as you and I well know, and many people who are bright and caught up to date and know what time it is, you know, people are desperately looking, when will it go back to normal? It was never normal. We've never known normal. We are creating normal, we the people of the world. We are creating our normal. We are taking our lives back, our powers back, and we are deleting the elites who put themselves in charge. How many elitists run the governments of the world? It's embarrassing. How many of them all connect to certain, you know, what runs in your veins sounds like flood. How many floodlines are connected? You know, anyway, enough said at this stage. Brad, I love you. You're a legend. You've brought us such amazing truths. Your presentations, you do so many conferences. You gift so much of your passion and your love, and you stand literally head and shoulders in my book amongst a lot of research archaeologists. And I'm really proud you're going to be a speaker again at GISIC this year.
Well, thank you very much, Dani. That's very kind of you to say. And I'm just here. I like to say, I aspire to inspire until I expire. And that's my life mission. I'm just here in service to all. And I was born with the gift of gab, as my grandfather told me as a little kid. I was making jokes and cracking up our family. We still repeat some of the jokes I made up when I was 5 years old, and they're still kind of funny. So I just have this ability to communicate very well in the form of my books and in form of speaking in front of a large audience. And all I want to do is just give people the information that they have been denied in their life about who we are on this planet and all that they can use to live a better life themselves.
What a beautiful, beautiful set of phrases there, and real endearing from your heart to everybody else's. Hold your book up again, choose 1 or 3 or 7 of them, and just show the audience what the pictures, the images on the front, and so that's Beyond Esoteric. There's a trilogy of those books. Modern Esoteric.
The other 2.
Yeah.
1, 2, and Beyond Esoteric's 3. Never repeat my information. It's all new information loaded with great images to back up every chapter. A lot of footnotes. I'm never not referring to outside sources. I always encourage people, everything I say, do your own research, follow the links and the references that I provide, and go further with it, because there's just so much. And my 4th book in the Esoteric series will be called Esoteric Antarctica, and that'll come out in about 2-year time. And that'll have a whole bunch of great new information about the Battle of High Jump and the Nazi base New Schwabenland, which I already talk about in my Hidden Anomalies of Antarctica talk, but a lot more detail on some of the under ice bases as well too.
That's fantastic. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Brad. Love having you on, and can't wait to see you again at the GISIC this year, the Galactic and Spiritual Informers Connection, that will be in Orlando, Florida this year. Probably our final year having it in Orlando. We're looking to move to a huge stadium next year. We're getting so, it's just growing exponentially. People just so want to see the speakers that we have and be a part of this great movement in disclosure. So Orlando, Florida, October 20th, 21st, and 22nd. The website is galacticspiritualinformers.com. The details will be, of course, underneath this broadcast, along with Brad Olsen's website, his publishing company, where you have access to all of his beautiful books. Thank you, Brad. Love you, mate.
Love you too, Dani. Thanks for having me on. Great talking with you again.
Always. And to you guys, you beautiful viewers, thank you for spending time with us. I so appreciate you. I so appreciate you being part of my little channel. And I know that the people that come on are just so beloved, globally beloved. And I'm so honored to share them with you, to share your connection. I love the live chats that we have. I love when you're in the live chat. So many of you have made friends in the live chat, just the live chat alone, never mind the Telegram and all the rest of it that we have here at GISIC. So lots of love to you, and I'll see you guys soon.